Derek had been stationed on the desolate planet of Vyrix for almost 2 months. The dusty winds and the never-ending stretches of barren land made him feel more isolated than he'd ever felt before. His job as a member of the peacekeeping forces was to help ensure that humanity's presence on the planet was both respected and safe. It wasn't exactly a glamorous assignment, but Derek had seen worse. He was used to the solitude. The colony he was stationed at was a small one, a mix of human settlers and various alien species that had settled under the same intergalactic peace agreement. Despite the peaceful arrangement, tensions were always high. The Vitar, the most powerful and mysterious race in the area, had a long history with humanity, and it wasn't a friendly one. Their interactions had been mostly brief and cautious, with a lot of misunderstandings on both sides. Derek's orders were simple: keep the peace, observe, and stay out of trouble. But trouble always had a way of finding him, and today was no different. He'd been on a routine patrol when he'd seen her, the alien woman standing alone in the distance. She was tall, her skin a deep shade of violet, her hair like strands of silver lightning. The Vitar had always been known for their striking appearances, but it was the way she stood that caught his attention. There was a calm confidence in her posture, something he hadn't seen before in a Vitar. Most of them carried themselves with a cold, almost intimidating air, but not her. She looked different. Derek approached cautiously, his boots kicking up the dry dirt as he moved closer. He had been briefed about the Vardar's reputation. They were strong, intelligent, and dangerous. Their species had been involved in numerous battles with humans, their hatred for the human race running deep for reasons Derek still didn't fully understand. So, when he spotted her out here alone, he knew it could be trouble. He stopped a few feet away from her, unsure of what to say or how to act. She hadn't turned to face him yet, but the way her shoulders tensed told him she was aware of his presence. "Hey," he said, trying to sound casual. "You're not supposed to be out here by yourself, are you?" The Vitar woman finally turned to face him. Her eyes, bright yellow with vertical pupils, were intense and intelligent, and yet there was something strangely gentle in the way she regarded him. Derek tried to keep his composure, but something about her gaze made him feel exposed, like she could see right through him. "I am fine," she replied, her voice a soft, melodic hum that was unexpected for someone of her intimidating appearance. The silence between them stretched on for a moment, neither of them moving. Derek knew he should say something more, something that would break the tension in the air. But what? How do you talk to someone who was from a race that had been your enemy for generations? His mind raced, and before he could think better of it, the words slipped out. "You know," Derek said, his tone light-hearted. "You'd make a cute wife." The second the words left his mouth, Derek realized his mistake. He hadn't meant anything by it. It was just a stupid joke. A way to lighten the situation. But as soon as the words hung in the air, he knew he had crossed a line. The Vitar woman froze. Her eyes, which had been calm and steady, narrowed slightly, as if processing his words in a way Derek hadn't expected. For a moment, there was nothing but the sound of the wind and the distant hum of the colony. The air around them felt thick, charged with a strange kind of energy. Derek's heart started to race. Did he just start a war by saying that? He cursed under his breath, ready to apologize. But before he could say anything else, she spoke. "I accept," she whispered, her voice so soft that he almost didn't hear it. Derek's mind went blank. Did he hear that right? He looked at her, trying to figure out if she was serious or if it was some strange alien form of sarcasm. But her face was calm, her eyes steady, and there was a slight tilt of her head as if she were waiting for something. Waiting for him to say something. I didn't mean," Derek stammered, his brain still trying to catch up with the moment. "I was just joking. I didn't think—" But she raised a hand to stop him, her fingers just inches from his face. Her expression didn't change, but there was a depth to her gaze that made Derek feel as if she were looking at something far beyond him. "I understand your humor, human," she said, "but in my culture jokes like that are not taken lightly." Derek was confused. "Wait, what does that mean?" He had no idea what she was talking about. "I mean, I'm just making a joke, right? About a wife?" "I didn't mean to. You did not insult me," she said, cutting him off. "In fact, your words, though foolish, hold meaning. It is not your place to joke about such things, but your intention was not malicious. In my culture, to accept such an offer is a statement of respect." Derek blinked, processing what she was saying. He could feel the heat rising in his cheeks as he realized he had no idea what he was getting into. This wasn't just some casual remark. He had somehow managed to stumble into a very serious situation. "But I didn't," he started, but she was already stepping away, her eyes never leaving him. "It doesn't matter now," she said. "The decision has been made." Derek was left standing there, utterly dumbfounded. He had never been great with women, never mind alien women. But now, with his joke about marriage hanging in the air, he had no idea what to do. As she began to walk away, Derek found himself watching her, captivated by her presence. Despite the awkwardness, despite the uncertainty, something about her made him feel something he hadn't felt in a long time. Was it respect? Or maybe it was something else. Something deeper. He shook his head, trying to clear his thoughts. This was insane. He had made a joke, and now she was accepting him? Accepting a joke? What was going on? As he watched her disappear into the distance, Derek realized one thing for certain. He had no idea what kind of trouble he had just gotten himself into. The next few days were nothing like what Derek had imagined. Ever since his brief encounter with Zyla, the Vitar woman, his life had taken an unexpected turn. He couldn't stop thinking about her words, the way she had accepted his careless joke. It gnawed at him, making him restless during the long hours on patrol. What did it mean? What had just happened? Derek wasn't the type to get tangled up in misunderstandings, but this felt different. Zyla's response had left him in a kind of emotional limbo. He couldn't bring himself to approach her again right away. Every time he thought about doing so, a sense of unease washed over him. His mind raced with questions he wasn't sure he even had answers to. He had been trained to handle difficult situations with ease, but this was new territory, something beyond the usual political tension he'd been briefed about when it came to the Vatar. Days passed and Derek tried to focus on his duties, but the thought of Zyla was never far from his mind. When the opportunity came for him to speak with Mila, the linguist stationed at the colony, he didn't hesitate. Mila was one of the few people he trusted to help make sense of the strange situation he found himself in. Mila was sitting at a table in the colony's mess hall when Derek approached her. She was reviewing data on her tablet, but her eyes lit up when she saw him. "Derek! I haven't seen you in a while. You look like you've got something on your mind." Derek hesitated for a moment before taking a seat.
"You could say that."
"It's about the Vatar." Mila raised an eyebrow. "The Vatar? You got yourself into some trouble already?" Derek chuckled nervously. "Sort of. I spoke with one of them, Zyla. She's different. I mean, I didn't expect her to react the way she did." Mila's eyes narrowed. "What do you mean?" Derek recounted the encounter with Zyla, how he'd made that careless joke, and how she had responded by saying, "I accept." As he spoke, he could feel his cheeks redden with embarrassment. He didn't know why, but the thought of telling someone else about his mistake made him feel exposed, vulnerable. When he finished, Mila sat back, her expression thoughtful. "That's interesting," she said, after a long pause. "Most people wouldn't be so open with a joke like that, especially when it comes to the Vitar." "I didn't think it was a big deal," Derek muttered. "It was just a stupid thing to say." "Well, it's not quite as simple as that with the Vitar," Mila explained. "Their culture is complicated. especially when it comes to matters of respect and personal relationships. They're not like humans. What you may see as a joke could be interpreted in a completely different way by them. Derek felt his stomach drop. So I really messed up, didn't I? Mila sighed. Not necessarily, but you need to understand the gravity of what you said. In Vardar culture, to accept an offer like that isn't just about marriage. It's a gesture of respect. If they see someone as worthy, they may make such an agreement. It's not about the joke. It's about what it represents. And that's what you're dealing with now.
Derek felt a knot form in his stomach.
So, what now? Should I apologize? Mila smiled slightly. Apologize, yes, but more than that, you need to understand what her response meant. You've crossed a line, but not in the way you think. She accepted your offer because it means something to her culture. This isn't about you being a fool. It's about her seeing something in you. Derek didn't know whether to feel relieved or more anxious. So, she wasn't offended? No, Mila said, but you need to tread carefully. The Vitar don't easily forgive disrespect, and if you show that you don't understand their ways, it could be trouble for you. Derek nodded, absorbing the information. The more he thought about it, the more confused he became. What had Zyla meant when she said, "I accept"? Was she playing some kind of game? Or had she truly meant it? The uncertainty weighed heavily on him. The next day, Derek found himself walking through the colony grounds, the sun dipping low on the horizon. He had a mission, an objective to complete, but his mind kept returning to Zyla. He had to see her again, had to figure out what was really going on. There was something about her, something that stirred a feeling in him he couldn't explain. It wasn't just attraction. It was something deeper, something that felt as though their paths had crossed for a reason. As Derek walked, he spotted Zyla in the distance, standing alone near the outskirts of the colony. Her violet skin almost seemed to glow under the fading sunlight. There was a quiet strength about her that Derek couldn't ignore. She turned to him, her expression unreadable. He walked toward her slowly, trying to steady his breath. This wasn't just another interaction with an alien. This was different. He had to be careful with his words. "Zyla!" he called out, his voice a little rougher than he intended. She regarded him with a calm stare. "Human," she said, her voice still soft but firm. "You have come to speak again." Derek cleared his throat, feeling suddenly awkward. "Yeah, I wanted to talk about the other day." She tilted her head slightly, a silent invitation for him to continue. "I didn't mean to offend you. I didn't know." Derek faltered, trying to find the right words. "I didn't understand your culture, and I didn't realize how serious that could be." Zyla's eyes softened slightly, but her demeanor remained composed. "You did not offend me, human. But you must understand, your words hold more weight than you think. In my culture, to accept such a gesture is a bond that cannot be taken lightly." Derek swallowed hard. "So, you really mean it?" "I mean it," she said simply, her voice low and steady. "But it is not a bond of love or affection. It is a bond of respect. You offered something that I had not expected. You offered me a connection, and I have accepted it." Derek didn't know what to say. He had expected her to laugh it off or brush him off. Instead, she had taken him seriously, more seriously than he had ever anticipated. "I don't really know what to do with that," he admitted, his voice a little softer now. Zyla's expression remained steady, but there was a glimmer of something deeper in her eyes.
You do not have to do anything, human.
"But you must be aware that this bond, this connection, will change both of us. It is not something you can undo, and it is not something to be taken lightly." Derek stood there, staring at her, unsure of how to respond. He had stepped into something far bigger than he could have ever imagined. But as he looked at Zyla, He couldn't shake the feeling that this was the beginning of something he didn't fully understand yet. And perhaps, in some strange way, that was the most exciting part of all. The days after Derek's conversation with Zyla were filled with a heavy sense of uncertainty. He couldn't seem to shake the thought of their strange exchange, and every time he saw her, he felt as if he were walking on a tightrope. Zyla had accepted his offer, but he still didn't fully understand what that meant. To him, it had been a joke, a silly comment, but to her it was something far more profound, something rooted in her culture, her respect for him, and possibly something much deeper than either of them was ready for. Derek spent most of his time on patrol or training with the other soldiers, trying to keep himself busy, but there was a part of him that couldn't ignore the pull of his thoughts toward Zyla. Each time he passed her, she seemed just a little more distant, a little more unreachable. She was always calm, composed, and aloof, as if she were trying to remain an enigma. But the more Derek observed her, the more he began to realize that there was a lot more to Zyla than met the eye. He learned from Mila, the linguist, that the Vatar were a race of warriors, bound by strict codes of honor and respect. Their culture was built on the foundation of strength, loyalty, and mutual understanding. What Derek had considered a simple mistake was something far more serious in the eyes of the Vatar. To them, words carried weight, especially those spoken between individuals of different races. When Zyla had accepted his offer, she had not only accepted him, but had also agreed to a bond that neither of them could easily break. It wasn't about marriage in the way humans understood it. No. For the Vitar, it was something deeper. A connection between two souls who had, for reasons unknown, chosen each other. Derek found himself at a crossroads. His feelings for Zyla were growing, but so were his doubts. He didn't know how to approach this situation, and every time he thought he had figured it out, it seemed to slip further away. He wasn't prepared for this kind of commitment. He had always been a soldier, a protector. Relationships, let alone interspecies bonds, weren't part of the training he had received. Yet there was something about Zyla that made him want to fight through his confusion. Something about her calm strength, her quiet wisdom, and the way she saw the world made Derek feel as though he was on the edge of something extraordinary. One afternoon, as he was patrolling near the outer edges of the colony, Derek spotted Zyla again. She was standing near a small clearing, her back to him, gazing out into the horizon. There was something almost ethereal about her, the way the wind played with her silver hair, the way the sunlight seemed to shine just a little brighter around her. Derek hesitated for a moment, unsure of whether he should approach her. But something inside him pushed him forward, and before he knew it, he was standing beside her. Zyla didn't turn to look at him right away. She simply continued to watch the horizon, her eyes focused on something far off in the distance. Derek wasn't sure what to say, but the silence between them felt comfortable, almost as if they didn't need words to communicate. Still, he couldn't help but break the stillness. "I've been thinking about what you said," Derek began, his voice steady but tinged with uncertainty. Zyla glanced at him, her gaze piercing. "What did I say?" That you accepted my offer," Derek replied, "and what that means in your culture. I didn't know what I was getting into when I made that joke. I didn't realize it would be taken so seriously." Zyla's expression softened, but she didn't immediately speak. Instead, she stepped away from the clearing and began to walk, her footsteps light but purposeful. Derek followed her, unsure of whether he should keep talking or just listen. "You were not wrong to speak the words you did, human," she said finally, her voice calm but heavy with meaning. "But you were not entirely right either. In my people's culture, words are more than just expressions. They are bindings. They tie us to one another. So when I accepted your offer, I did not do so lightly." Derek's mind raced as he listened to her words. It was clear now that this wasn't just about him making a joke. This was something bigger, something that neither of them could control. "I didn't mean to bind you to me," he said, his voice quiet, almost apologetic. Zyla stopped and turned to face him, her eyes locking with his. You did not bind me, Derek. I chose to accept. I chose this path, not you. He wasn't sure how to respond to that. His thoughts were jumbled, but one thing was clear. Zyla wasn't angry with him. She wasn't resentful. In fact, she seemed to be at peace with everything that had happened. It was a strange feeling for Derek. One that he didn't fully understand, but couldn't deny. There was a calmness about her, an acceptance of things beyond her control that made him feel both comforted and uneasy. So, what does this mean for us? Derek asked, finally able to voice the question that had been plaguing him for days. Zyla's eyes softened, and for a brief moment, Derek thought he saw a flicker of something deeper in her gaze. It means that we are bound, Derek. Not by force, not by duty, but by choice. What you offered, though it came in the form of a joke, was something that I have accepted. We are now connected in a way that neither of us can easily undo. Derek stood still, his heart racing. He had no idea how to react. This wasn't the world he had been trained to understand. But there was something in Zyla's words that made him feel as though this connection wasn't something to fear. It was something to embrace, something to learn from. I don't know if I'm ready for this, Derek admitted, his voice low. I didn't expect any of this to happen. I don't even know what you really want from me. Zyla took a step closer to him, her presence towering over him despite her calm demeanor.
I do not expect anything from you, Derek, but I ask you to accept what has happened.
We are different, yes, but that does not make our bond any less real. If you choose to reject it, you may. But know that rejecting me, rejecting this connection, will only cause harm. Derek looked at her, feeling the weight of her words. He didn't want to hurt her, didn't want to reject her, but he was unsure of what this bond meant for him. He was a soldier, a protector, not someone who had been prepared for the complexities of interspecies relationships. But looking at Zyla, he realized that maybe he didn't need to have all the answers. Maybe this was something they could figure out together. I'm not rejecting it, Derek said finally, his voice firm. I don't know where this goes from here. Zyla nodded, as if she had expected this response. Then we will take it one step at a time. We are bound, Derek. But we will learn what that means together. As the sun began to set behind them, casting a warm orange glow across the horizon, Derek felt something shift within him. The uncertainty that had clouded his mind began to clear, replaced by something else, something he couldn't quite name. He didn't have all the answers, but for the first time in days he felt as if he could face what came next. Zyla had accepted him, and in her acceptance, Derek had been given a chance to understand not only her people, but himself as well. As the wind whispered through the trees and the stars began to twinkle in the sky above, Derek knew that whatever happened next, he wasn't alone. The weeks that followed were both strange and exhilarating for Derek. He had come to realize that Zyla was not just a symbol of the Vatar people's strength, but someone far more complex, someone with depth and understanding that went beyond what he had expected. Despite the bond that had formed between them, the one that he had never intended to create, Derek still found himself uncertain about everything. There were moments when he felt a connection to her, a sense of peace in her presence, but then there were times when he was overwhelmed with doubt. What did all of this mean? Could he handle it? Could he be what Zyla needed? And could she truly be what he needed in return? Derek's days were filled with training, patrols, and conversations with the soldiers stationed at the colony. Zyla, too, continued with her duties, but the encounters between them had become less frequent. They would see each other in passing, exchange quiet words, but nothing more. It seemed as if they were both waiting for something, though neither of them had spoken openly about it. They both knew that the connection between them was real, but what that connection would lead to was still a mystery. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the mountains and the colony was quiet, Derek found himself walking toward the edge of the settlement. He needed some space, a moment, to clear his mind. The weight of the past few weeks had been pressing down on him, and he needed to think. As he walked along the path that led to the outskirts, he saw her again. Zyla was standing near a rocky outcrop, her back to him, staring at the horizon. Her posture was the same as the first time he had seen her, calm and composed, but there was something different about the way she stood now, something that made Derek's heart race. He couldn't help it. He had to approach her. As he walked closer, Zyla turned to face him, her eyes locking with his. She didn't say anything, but there was a subtle shift in the air between them. Derek stood there for a moment, unsure of how to begin. His heart was pounding in his chest, and his mind was a whirlwind of thoughts and questions. He had come to the edge of the colony to find some clarity, but now, standing in front of Zyla, he realized that perhaps she was the one who could offer him the answers he sought. "I've been thinking about what you said," Derek began, his voice steady, though his nerves were evident. "About this bond between us. I don't know if I can fully understand it yet,
But I want to try." Zyla nodded, her expression unreadable.
She stepped closer to him, the space between them narrowing. "You do not need to fully understand it, Derek. You only need to accept it. To accept what has happened, and what will come." Derek's mind was still spinning, but there was something about the way she spoke that gave him a sense of calm. She was not asking him for anything beyond acceptance. She wasn't demanding a declaration of love or a promise of something grand. She was simply asking him to accept the bond they shared, no matter how complicated it seemed. "I've been afraid," Derek admitted, his voice softer now. "Afraid of what this means for me, for us."
"I'm not like you, Zyla. I don't have your strength, your calmness."
"I spent my life as a soldier. I don't know how to navigate something like this." Zyla took another step forward, her presence filling the space between them.
"You have more strength than you realize, Derek. Strength comes in many forms."
"You are not defined by what you do, but by what you choose to become. And I believe you are already becoming something more than you know." Her words hit him harder than anything he had expected. For the first time in weeks, Derek felt a sense of clarity. It wasn't about being perfect, about understanding everything right away. It was about accepting the journey, embracing the unknown, and trusting in the connection that had formed between them. It was about choosing to move forward together, despite their differences. "I don't know what the future holds," Derek said, his voice low but steady. "But I want to try. I want to learn from you, Zyla. I want to see where this bond takes us." Zyla's eyes softened, and for the first time, Derek saw a flicker of something like warmth in her gaze. "Then that is all we need," she said, her voice calm but full of meaning, "to move forward together, one step at a time." In that moment, Derek realized that he didn't have to have all the answers. He didn't have to be perfect. What mattered was that he was willing to face the unknown with Zyla by his side. He didn't know what their future would look like, but he was ready to walk that path with her, to learn and grow together. As they stood there, the wind blowing gently around them, Derek felt a deep sense of peace. For the first time in weeks, the weight that had been pressing on him seemed to lift. The bond between him and Zyla wasn't something to fear. It was something to embrace. They were two people from different worlds, with different cultures and histories, but they had found a connection. And in that connection, Derek found something he hadn't realized he was looking for, a sense of belonging, a sense of purpose. "I'm glad we had this talk," Derek said, his voice sincere. "I'm ready for whatever comes next." Zyla gave him a small, almost imperceptible smile. "So am I, Derek. So am I." As the last rays of sunlight disappeared behind the mountains and the stars began to twinkle in the sky, Derek and Zyla stood together in silence. There were no grand promises, no guarantees of what the future would bring, but in that moment, they didn't need them. They had each other, and that was enough. The path ahead was uncertain, but they would face it together, step by step. And for the first time in a long time, Derek felt like he was exactly where he was supposed to be.